So my name is Emily Smith. I am 19 years old, and at the age of 5, I lost my vision to retinitis pigmentosa.
How do you pronounce that? Retinitis
Pigmentosa.
what is regnin? What is RP?
Okay, so RP is a genetic disorder that makes someone lose their vision gradually, so over decades most of the time. It is usually diagnosed during childhood. And what happens is the person usually lose their peripheral vision first. So then they only have tunnel vision. And it usually, most cases, people do not lose their vision entirely because it takes many, many years to get worse.
So how was your case of RP different from others?
So for me, I was born with perfect vision, but at the age of 5.5, I suddenly my eyes started getting blurry, and then over one night, I lost it completely except for just a little bit of light perception. So in total, that was over about like 2 or 3 days. Also, my RP is not genetic throughout my entire family. So it was very sudden, it was random. And all of my doctors have told me that I have RP just because of the way my retinas are decaying, but that is like the only aspect of RP. Everything else is just kind of, gone from the definition in my case.
So with RP, it usually takes like decades, and for you, it just
Mhm.
happened very suddenly as a child. How
Right.
difficult was it adjusting from being a sighted person to being a blind person at such a young age?
So fortunately for me, since I did lose my vision at such a young age, I adjusted pretty easily, kind of like kids, adjust to a lot of things very easily because they're young and their minds are open and they just kind of roll with it. So I do not remember too much of it. So, I guess it didn't affect me quite dramatically at the time. So just kind of, all of a sudden I don't have my vision. So I just had to adjust. And like I said, as a child, it was fine. And my parents were very good about kind of like letting me do what I wanted to do so I could, explore my loss of vision and, the fact that I could still, actively be, a normal child.
So because it happened so young, it was you were still pretty adaptable as a child, so wasn't as difficult as a switch over. But as time went on, what was the most difficult adjustment that you had to make?
So far, the hardest adjustment as a child and, even to this day is the fact that I am a blind person and I'm living in a very sighted world. And basically what that just means is for I guess you could say like full functioning human being, sight is like the primary sense that everybody uses. So because of that, almost everything that happens, almost everything that's presented in the world is primarily first viewed as something visual. So, I have to kind of go about that, because that's not an option, so I have to kind of so let's say like meeting people, I can't sighted people can just, oh, I like your shirt, I like your shoes, but I can't do that. We have to we have to introduce ourselves and like instantly have a conversation,
Yeah.
which is sometimes kind of hard.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that, kind of had to adjust to. But one of the other biggest ones that obviously it's kind of a bigger thing now that I've gotten older, but transportation is one of the biggest things because one of the greatest things as being a sighted person, especially when you turn 16 years old, is
Mhm.
getting your driver's license, and you can go wherever you want, at
Mhm.
any time of the day, anything. You can just hop in your car, grab your keys and go. So I think as being a blind person, the first hurdle was accepting the fact that I could not get a driver's license while everybody else was. So that was a little hard, because everybody, it just, their excitement was just, everybody was kind of turning the same age at the same time. So I went to a public school. It was about 1,800 kids, and I was the only blind person.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so in my grade, there was probably 400 or 500 kids. So that's a lot of driver's license at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was hard. And a lot of other blind people have a whole lot of trouble with that. And I didn't dwell on it too much. It
Mhm.
still kind of hits me sometimes, especially when I'm sitting, on a bus for 2 hours, just trying to get
Yeah.
home.
So how supportive was your family and home life surrounding your disability?
So when it came to blindness, my family was amazing. They were the greatest support system I had. Um, my parents fortunately did not send me to a school for the blind, which a lot of parents do. Um, and I'm not saying that to say that school for the blind are bad, because depending on who you are, that may be the best option. It just, from the day I started, my personality started coming out. School for the blind and kind of that restricted area was not who I was. And my parents recognized that, and they just sent me to public school and said she'll be fine. Just hang out with all her other normal friends, and she'll be all right. Because that I think that's what helped me just kind of be who I was and not dwell on my blindness as much. But they are super awesome, and my mom was my biggest advocate from when I was very young. She talked to the school district, and she's the one that like fought for them, fought for me to get my Braille teacher, to get my O&M instructor, which is orientation and mobility instructor. So that's traveling using my cane. So she fought for that. Um, she fought for that, and I had my Braille teacher and cane instructor almost just a couple months after I lost my vision, which is incredible because the majority of blind people do not have that advantage at such a young age.
So because of your mom's support and talking with the school, you would say
Mhm.
you had a pretty accommodating experience with your public school?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then as I got older, I kind of took on that advocacy for myself, and I talked to the teachers myself. I talked to the principals. I called different organizations like, hey, look, I need these accommodations. I'm taking these exams. I have these classes, and I need material that I can access so I can, work and grow to my potential in these classes. And fortunately, my school, not only was my mom's advocacy, but my own, like the school itself, all the teachers and administrators were absolutely amazing. And they always fought for me. They always got me, Braille material, tactile graphics, that sort of thing. I took, in high school, I took 5 different math classes, and I took 4 different chemistry classes. And they are all pretty visual, especially I took organic chemistry, which was even worse than geometry. And I thought geometry was extremely visual, but organic chemistry was unbelievable. It was just, honestly, it was awful how visual it was. But my chemistry teacher was one of the greatest people I've ever met in this world. And she was so good about accommodating and getting like literally anything that I needed. So that was really good. And that was the case for, all of my classes.
So that was with school. What kind of hurdles do you find facing, like finding jobs and work?
So sadly, a lot of companies and employers hesitate to hire blind people, just because they're, you know, nervous about having, kind of a situation they've never dealt with before. Because most sighted people that you meet on a daily basis has probably never met a blind person before. Um, and so they, they're not sure what to do. Sometimes they just do not want to pay for the accommodations, which is kind of ridiculous. But a lot of companies just say, oh, we don't, they do it in a very polite way. Like, oh, right now we've moved on to, to a different set of candidates, which kind of means we don't want to kind of take the effort to hire you. And then they seem to think that blind people will not do their job as, as what they want them to do on the job, which is the exact opposite of how blind people approach jobs most of the time, because we are so desperate to get a job, because it is so hard to get a job, that once we get hired, it's like, okay, I'm going to do everything possible to not do anything wrong, do absolutely everything that is called for on the position, and stay there, because it was most likely very difficult to get that job. So, kind of why would we jeopardize that, situation?
Right. So, for you, what would you call your normal day's routine?
So I'm just a normal person. So I, run errands, cook, go to different places that I want to go to. I'm starting a job in a couple weeks, so that's exciting. So I'll be working Monday through Friday, 8 hours a week. So that'll be my daily routine for a while.
What job did you get?
So I'm going to be working at the Travis Association for the Blind. So it's a lighthouse in Taylor, Texas. So it's a really good job for like blind people who've never had a job before, because they are associated with, Lighthouse for the Blind. So they are really, really great about hiring blind people and giving them that job experience and letting them know, okay, this is a job and it's a really good job, but we recognize that when you're ready, go find an even bigger, better job. So I'm going to be working, it's a warehouse. So I'll be working most likely in the warehouse receiving section.
What are some prominent day-to-day struggles, and how do you overcome those struggles?
So like I was talking before, transportation is the biggest one, and the one that kind of comes up almost every day. So I can kind of like elaborate more on that, but here in Austin, the transportation is a whole lot better than where I grew up. I didn't live in a tiny, tiny town, but it was not also like a city. So here, you have Uber, you have Lyft, you have Metro Access, you have buses, you have some trains. So you have options. But the thing is, you are, as a blind person, you are relying on that transportation and you have no other choice. And you are essentially relying on strangers to get you to places you need to be. And sometimes you are relying on them to get you to very, very important appointments and on the right time. So you cannot be late. And so it's hard because you either pay Uber or Lyft, which cost is coming to be very, very expensive lately. For anywhere you go. So that builds up and builds up and builds up. Or you take Metro Access, and I will say the Metro Access here it's really good. It's very affordable, very convenient. But the big thing about that is 99% of the time you will not be like where you want to be when you want to be.
Yeah.
Because so what happens is there's a window. So let's say I want to go somewhere. So they pick me up between 12 and 12:30. Okay, they may come at 12 on the dot, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But they also could come at 12:40.
Oh, yeah.
And so I live in North Austin. So let's say if I need to go South Austin for some reason, if I'm going, for far enough away, that means I'm probably going to be sharing a ride with somebody, which means they will stop at least 1 or 2 times to pick up somebody else. Which is fine, but sometimes they don't organize it in the best manner. So sometimes they'll pick up 1 or 2 people and they're dropping them off first. So all of a sudden it's like an hour and a half later and I was the first one on the bus. And it's like 2:30 now and I'm just getting off of the bus. So that's frustrating at times. And a lot of people tell us, other blind people, oh, I live here, there's no transportation, you should be grateful. And, of course we are grateful, but it's also good to recognize that the transportation could be better in the way they organize it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so me and my partner are planning to get a car at some point and get a personal driver, which of course can be costly because it's a car and a driver, but the convenience and just having being controlling of your own time and where you're going, it's just ultimately is better than I'm sitting in someone else's car and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know when I'm going to get there.
It's like you got to be completely reliant on the person who said they were going to take you someplace.
Exactly. And Metro Access is a little better than Uber and Lyft because they are they're designed to drive like disabled people, whatever that disability is, or maybe they're just kind of an elder person and they just I don't know, wheelchair or something. So anybody who is not who cannot drive a car, and so it's kind of easier to feel safer with them because that's their job. But it's still kind of nerve-wracking. But with Uber and Lyft, what a lot of blind people do, it's a whole process. So what we have to do is before they get here, we have to say, I am blind, please call me or honk the horn when you get here. Because first you have to find the car. And then it's like a whole thing. You have to check their name, they check your name, you check their name again. So to make sure you're not getting in the wrong car. And then what I definitely do this, and my partner does this too, I'm sure other people do it too, get in the car and you're constantly watching the app and you're watching your GPS to make sure you're going to the right place. Because you just never know. Sighted people can just look out the window, oh, this is the right street, I'm heading in the right direction, but we have to just kind of sitting in the car, just kind of going along. So it's really good to make sure you're safe and going in the right place and checking your navigation. So
okay, so while you were talking about that, I actually thought of another question. What is your what's your opinion on the progression of self-driving cars? What if one day you actually get to get in a car and it just takes you on its own?
Yeah, so the idea seems great. And I know, to be honest, I'm not sure on the last update on those because I know they're doing stuff, it's getting a little better, but I don't know the last update. But me personally, so I am a huge thrill seeker. I love roller coasters, stuff like that. But for some reason, when it comes to cars, I'm not going to get in a self-driving car. And so I know for sure that they're okay and they'll stop if there's a sudden stop in the traffic, because one of my biggest fears is, okay, they can program stop when there's a red light, stop when there's a stop sign, but people are people, they're not robots, so they run red lights, they do all this crazy stuff. So I'm not going to get into that car. And so I know for sure that car is a little bit smarter than just kind of do this, do that, black and white type thing. Now
Right.
my partner will get in a car in a heartbeat and try it out, but he's obsessed with cars and technology though.
Mhm.
So he'll do it in a heartbeat. And my partner is totally blind, by the way.
Oh yeah, I think you told me that.
Yeah.
I think you told me that before when we were talking. Okay. What is something that you can do uniquely as a blind person that a sighted person cannot do?
So one of the most fun things for me is that I love to tell people that I can read in the dark. Because I love reading. I love reading so much. And most of the time, I do listen to books, but when I am reading, on my devices or reading Braille of any type, you don't have to you don't have to turn on the light. You can read in the middle of the night. When I was in school and everybody was sleeping, I was still, writing essays and doing assignments. And I just could sit there on the couch and, just work for hours and hours in the dark, and it was fine. So that's pretty awesome. Also, this is not like a current circumstance, but when I'm ready or if I decide to, I can get a guide dog, which will be very cool and different. And so, blind people have that opportunity, and it's one of the greatest things ever. My partner actually just had a guy yesterday come to the house for a home interview for Guide Dogs for the Blind. So that was just last evening. And so he should be hearing from them in a couple months to like 6 months or so, when he should go to the school and train to get his guide dog. So that's very exciting.
All right. And I guess I can put the next two questions just kind of like into the same question. Just like what is the best support you found within both the blind community and the sighted community?
So in the blind community, there's a bunch of different organizations. So there's the NFB, which is National Federation for the Blind, and that's a huge organization over the whole, country, national, of course. And it's big. There's a president, there's a vice president, there's all these state affiliates. So every single state has their little section. There's a national convention every year, and then each state has their own convention, like every spring or fall. And they just their biggest thing is having, blind awareness, and just literally like anything that comes up in blindness support, technology, having all these meetings and business meetings and everything about like this group with this job, blind people in this career, blind people in this career, blind people doing this, anything that you can think of, just in the world, just the blind community version of it, I guess you could say. And then there's also vocational rehabilitation. So that's each blind person should get a VR counselor. Not every blind person does. But basically what VR counselors do is they help you to get your future, like to help you in your future. So you usually get a VR counselor after you graduate high school. So they write up a plan for you about, okay, if you're going to college, what college are you going to? How can we help you? What technology can we buy for you? Because they will buy you your technology. They will pay for part of your school. Yeah, they will, if you're living in an apartment, they will pay for some of your rent. So that is the biggest, I will say the biggest help and support right there. Like in general, like broadly, it is huge. And
is this a like a charity type donation, or is this like a government program?
It's a government thing. Yeah, each state has their VR program, and each state does it different. So the one here in Texas, I will say that there is a lot that VR can do. I mean, a whole lot. Honestly, the VR counselors are a little stubborn sometimes, and that's how VR counselors are everywhere most of the time. It takes a little effort to justify and to get the stuff that you need, but they will do it. You just sometimes have to kind of push them a little bit and convince them, hey, I need this, this is what I want to do for my life. This is what I want to do for the next 5 years. And they'll write up a plan, send it in, and they'll get it for you. Here in Texas, they'll even help you like move sometimes if you have a new job. They'll help you start up a small business, all sorts of stuff. They'll pay for transportation sometimes. So they're incredible, absolutely incredible.
That's really awesome. I didn't know about that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And then the other thing I can think of for a blind community is there's three. So each state has like a training center, like a little, people can go there after high school and like train like life skills and such. But there are three big training centers. So Louisiana, Colorado, and Minnesota, I believe, were the three. And so last year I went to the Louisiana Center for the Blind. And so they are very rigorous programs that are about 6 to 9 months long, and all that you do every day, Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day, is Braille classes, home ec classes, traveling classes, technology classes, and industrial arts, which is like power tools and stuff. So what being there, what that training does is prepare you to be independent, and to honestly like function well and as a person, as a blind person in the sighted world. So I was there for between 5 and 6 months. I did not graduate. A lot, the biggest point is to graduate. But me personally, I did not graduate because I felt like I did not need to be there for the full 9 months. Because, for me, I already knew Braille, already knew how to use my cane. I've already cooked a little bit. So I was there to kind of brush up on things, as well as kind of like really strengthen my skills. And especially the industrial arts class, that entire class was new to me because I've never used power tools. And that's how it is for the majority of blind people, of course, because most people will not even let you touch power tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this before a little bit, and I was going to ask, how many like injuries happened like within like the power tool like class or the crossing the highway task?
So none, actually.
Really?
None. Yeah. So the training is very hardcore, and a lot of us are honestly like, why are we doing this? Like, sighted people don't even do this. Like, they get people to cross the highway, they get people to cross the interstate. And when they tell you that in the beginning, you're like, you have lost your mind. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And to this day, I still think it's a little crazy. I did cross the highway while I was there. I did not cross the interstate. I left before doing that. And I really don't care either way, because I don't see why I need to know how to cross the interstate. So no injuries there. I will say, there's your like occasional injuries while you're on travel. I don't know, maybe you trip or you do something. Just kind of stuff happens. But the power tools, the one who's teaching it, he is fantastic. He's sighted. But the cool thing about him is when there's a new student, to get them very relaxed and for them to trust him, he will actually put on the shades. So one thing I didn't mention is while you're at the training, you have to wear shades. So it blocks out all of your vision. And what that does is that trains you to do everything that you can with absolutely no vision. Because like I said, a lot of blind people lose their vision over time. So they want you to have those skills even like with absolutely no vision. So what he does is he puts on his shades, and he is teaching us how to saw stuff, how to drill stuff, everything, with him being blind as well. So it kind of lets us know like this guy is, for real. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to work with blind people. And it kind of lets us trust him a little bit more, because sometimes, when a sighted people says like, oh, do this, it's fine. You automatically go, okay, can you do it when you're blind?
Yeah.
Blind people just kind of like get defensive a little bit naturally. It's like, oh, you've never done this being blind. You can't say anything. But he does it with no vision. And so it just, it helps a lot with that.
So those two questions, I kind of got a redundant question in here with the that kind of go along with those two is where do you find the best and most helpful support? I suppose like with all and within all of that.
It's a really hard question to answer because there's
Mhm.
pros and cons of everything, of course. Blind community, gives us reassurance, gives us support, like you're not alone type thing. Sighted community kind of grounds you a little bit, like remind you that you are a normal person and just live your life like it's normal. Of course, sighted people can help you with visual things. So that's good. I guess the bottom line is, to have a really good life, you can't really function without either. So I think the best answer for that is to kind of find your positives within each group. Because I have known people who stick with each, like, are years and years and years with each group, and it just kind of, they're lacking in other areas. So for instance, I, you know, I grew up in a sighted world. I went to school. I was the only blind person. And until I started going to like different blind programs and camps and stuff, that was the only blind people I ever knew. Um, and even then it was so weird because I was constantly around sighted people that for me, blind people were kind of weird to be around. Um, but eventually, as I got older, I was like, okay, this is kind of nice because we can relate in some areas that, I couldn't even really talk about to sighted people because they would just kind of look at me like I was crazy. And so that's really good to have that. And people who are, let's say, if people who are always just, doing things with the blind community, now all that is blindness and
Mhm.
constant like adaptation and accommodations and stuff. And it just kind of,
Right.
takes away some things that I think are very valuable to find in the real world, the general life. Um, that not just sighted people, but like, humans in general, like
Mhm.
kind of need to experience as they grow up, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so when we talked before, you said that you did grow up with your family in church. What was your
Mhm.
church experience regarding your disability?
So for me, church was not the best. And I'll set aside like the whole area of me where I just, I'm not particularly a religious person, but what I want to say, it really has nothing to do with that at the moment. But being blind, going to church, I went to a fairly large church. And so what happens is, because the nature of the people who go to church, they're extremely helpful. Like they love helping people, which is great. But it gets to the point where it's very overwhelming and it kind of feels condescending at sometimes,
Yeah.
because you kind of feel, okay, they're just treating me like I'm kind of helpless, like I can't
Yeah.
do anything by myself. I've known these people for like, years, like 10 years of my life, and they're still kind of like, oh, congratulations, I can't believe you did this. I'm so proud of you. Or let me help you walk down this hall.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just kind of, it gets a little too much sometimes.
Yeah.
And like I said, my church was very large, so there were tons and tons of people. It was loud. Um, and for me, that was just not my thing. I don't like
Mhm.
very loud noises. I don't like a lot of people. I don't like
Yeah.
big crowds. So for me personally, I was not a big fan of that. So
Right. Your story about how like people would like kind of like be like overly nice and it became overwhelming.
right.
I was at a what was it called? It was a like a program to help homeless people like actually find like permanent homes, and it was like this little, basically a well put together village so that they had somewhere to live, and they had their own like little store and everything, and I was helping out at that store, and this big group of people, it looked like they came from a church, came to like see like the little housing area and to like volunteer and everything.
Right.
And a large group of them came into the store, and there was a man in a wheelchair who was trying to buy some food, and he didn't have enough on his card, so he was just going to leave. And then this just drove of like people just like came up to the front, it's like, oh, we can pay for it. And the dude was all like, no, I'm leaving, and he just left. And I realized like they just kind of like overwhelmingly like mobbed this guy to do something kind, but also completely disregarded like who he was and like just him being a person. Like,
exactly.
And he was completely fine with not being able to get his can of beans, and then someone, just bought it for him without him saying if he wanted him to or not. And then they were just so confused as to why he just left grumpy.
Right.
And I'm all like, whenever like you do want to be kind and helpful towards, people who you see like are disabled or need help, there's a level of self-awareness that you have to have.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that so many people just don't have that.
One of the things that I find kind of funny but annoying at the same time, and that I can guarantee you, I may be missing a couple people, but I can guarantee you that every single blind person that you will ever meet has had this experience. And each experience is different, and we like to share the story between us because it's so funny. So basically, people love to pray for us, like random strangers. Like you may be walking down the sidewalk and there will be a random person, oh, I'm so sorry, can I pray for you? And it is the weirdest thing that you will ever experience. And it's just awkward. It's awkward, and it honestly, it kind of hurts sometimes, because what's happening is, honestly, their main purpose is to pray that your vision will come back. Which is most likely not the case for most blind people. Vision may get better, or you may have surgery, but that's just not. So when every person handles it so differently. My parents, at first, when I first lost my vision, they were still very, it was still very raw for them, they still were having trouble handling certain things. So when people came up, oh, can I pray for you? They were like, please get away from my child. Because it was just weird. And so I've had so many instances like that. I think the craziest one that I've ever had was me and my family were eating at a restaurant. We were sitting outside, and this guy comes up to me, and he actually stood pretty good amount away, like probably like 5 feet, which was better than normal, because normal people like come up and grab you. And so he was there, and this guy starts like opening up his Bible and starts like reading scripture and stuff. And he goes, I'll never forget, he goes, I will bring back your vision.
Is that sentence in the Bible? I know Jesus healed some blind people in scripture, but I don't know if that specific sentence was in scripture.
Yes. So this guy's kind of standing there, and honestly, I'll be honest, I like cracked up. I mean, I just started laughing so hard, and my parents were mad. They were so angry. And my brother is something else. He was just like, oh my God, he was like doing some weird magic over there. He was going to bring back the vision. So that was strange. But the good thing about him was he walked away when we told him to go. You know, a lot of people just kind of stay there. But he did walk away, which was nice.
I had an experience with people surrounding me trying to pray healing on me, and it was not the best experience, but so what had happened is that I was on like a mission trip type thing, and I had like gotten this horrible stomach ache, and to where I had to like double like over and like hunch just to like try and alleviate my stomach ache.
Right.
And like I did not want to tell my friends and other people on the mission trip, because I knew that they were all going to gather around me and try and pray. And all I wanted to do was just make it back to our base building so that I can get something to eat.
Right.
But then of course someone realizes, oh, it looks like you're in pain. I was like, oh, it's just a stomach ache. Let's just keep moving. But then it was clearly obvious that I was like in distress. And then like I feared, everyone just kind of gathered around me. I'm like, oh no. And they all just started praying, and I just tried to wait it out. And I had like 10, 15 people around me. And I just tried to wait it out, and then they stopped praying after a few minutes, and then they're like, is your pain gone? And I was like, okay, brain, do I lie? Oh, I'm with church people. I'm on a mission trip. Am I supposed to lie? So I don't lie. I say it's not gone, but I tell them, oh, it's gone down a little bit. And so they keep praying, and then this goes on for about 20, 25 minutes, and I am just so over it. And I'm all like, why do you people think that prayer is like wishing on a lamp and then God should magically do what you ask because you shout the same words 20 million times? It's like, I don't like whatever prayer is, I don't think it's that. And so after a while, I finally give in. I lie. I say, oh, my stomach ache's gone, hallelujah. And then but I'm still in pain. And so I have to stand up straight, and I try to like walk like I'm not in any pain. Like I can skip, but I'm like just still in a lot of pain. We finally make it back to the base, and the pain starts getting really bad again. I was like, oh, maybe I should like tell my friends that I didn't actually like feel better. And so I went up and told them, like, hey, my stomach ache, I didn't actually go away. I just really, really wanted you guys to stop praying because I just wanted to get back to the base. And we talked for a second. They apologized and everything. It was fine. And then we got food and everything was good. But that was like one of the like I was not comfortable because I grew up in a church, so there was a lot of like gathering around and praying, and for the most part, I was a Christian nerd, so I was kind of into it. But now I realize how awkward and like uncomfortable like a whole situation like that can be. And so I am a lot more aware of like don't go out into the street and just pick a random stranger to pray for. God's not leading you. You're trying to be seen, and you're trying to be like, ooh, I'm gonna be a part of a miracle.
Exactly.
What is an unmet need of the blind community that you would like to see met, not only in like individual people, but like systemically, like all around?
One of the things about the blind community is, although we are very, very helpful with each other, and it's very nice to relate to each other, and you kind of have your group, at the same time, blind people are extremely critical of each other. Extremely critical. So basically what happens is there's kind of this concept where, you're independent, you're blind, you're like being a great blind person, you're doing everything right, you're like being independent, you're doing everything by yourself. And a lot of people are huge on that concept. So not even like, don't use your GPS, ask for help only when it's an emergency, all of this crazy stuff. And it's, be aware of your blindness. Like, it's okay to use the word blind, because some people only use the word visually impaired and they're scared of using the word blind. So there's this big thing about using the word blind, so all of these sort of things. A lot of people who are very, very big into that are very critical of the people who do anything slightly against that. So if somebody does not like using their cane, oh, that is your lifeline. Like, how dare you not like your cane? They just do not respect that the person maybe is not ready. They just lost their vision. So they don't, they haven't accepted it yet. They don't like using their cane. They, a lot of times, they just don't see why someone may ask for help to go somewhere, ask for directions. They don't understand why, just may look at Google Maps for something like, oh, you can just like find your way somewhere, but it's almost every time you say something, the blind person that you're talking to probably will have a different opinion about it. And sometimes it gets so toxic where it's just not good. So I really think that just because of how much blind people struggle in the side world, that should really not be the case. And I feel like similar things happen with like all other types of groups, of course. But it's just like, okay, for instance, when I went to Louisiana Center for the Blind, every time that our instructor sent us out on a route for travel, you were not allowed to use your GPS at all. So they would give you this route, and if you got lost, you got lost. You had to find your way back. And I will be very honest with you, there were times that I did use my GPS because I'm a very logical person, and I'm like, in the real world, everybody's going to use their GPS. Why am I going to stand out here for 4 hours lost, walking around for no reason?
I mean, wherever you were you allowed to like ask people where you were?
That was also a big thing. Their big thing over there is, and that's kind of, so they're with the NFB, and that's how the NFB is. And so, in my opinion, it's not common sense. And so they were like, do not use your GPS. Do not ask people for help. You can figure it out yourself. Use your sun, use your traffic, use all your skills. Just do not use like outside resources.
I mean, even someone with like that can see like if they're lost, I mean, they would use the GPS or ask someone where they are. I mean,
exactly. That's what we tell them all the time.
It's like, are we trying to act like we're like they're better than people that can see because they can do it without doing things that people can see can?
Yeah, that's one of the big things too. A lot of people who are kind of not with that mindset feel like a lot of times it's like, okay, blind people are great, they know how to do stuff by themselves, well, we're so much better than, da da da. People would get in trouble. I mean, like if you use your GPS and they found out, like, oh my God, you've done something so bad, it was just so wrong. And then if you ask somebody for help, a lot of people in that town knew LCB, of course, and they knew the blind people. And some people would call the center and say, this kid asked somebody for help, which is kind of weird.
No, you should never be discouraged for asking for help. That's
exactly
like anybody.
Yeah. And it took me a while to, recognize that, because I've kind of just been like a quiet person, when I was younger, and I was very, very scared to ask for help a lot of the times. And I've gotten a whole lot better at it. But being at that training, it was very conflicting because it helped me a lot with being more confident and going into stores and finding people and asking them for help. But it also was like, okay, if you're not in a place where you're supposed to ask for help, so like if you're going shopping or if you're in stores, then that's one of the places that you have to ask for help because you're shopping. But anything else, do it yourself. You can figure it out. I know some blind people that will walk around an airport for like 30 minutes to an hour trying to find their plane. And then, okay, it's like you've missed your flight because you tried to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
At that point, it's just kind of like, come on.
Yeah.
There are airport assistants there to help blind people and help disabled people.
It's like there are accommodations that have been offered to you that blind people have asked for. And now there's some of them who are just like, oh, actually, I don't need that.
Right. And then they're confused, okay, how are you going to get to your flight across this huge airport? And, at that point, sometimes it kind of like confuses the sighted person and makes them kind of think even, worse of blind people sometimes. So it kind of has the opposite effect. But like I was saying, it's just there's a lot of, if you have this mindset and another person doesn't, it just shouldn't be that way. There's enough barriers for blind people in the first place, to overcome.
In addition to being part of the blind community, you are also a part of the LGBTQ plus community. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. And what's what is your affiliation with the LGBT community?
So I identify as being pansexual and non-binary / gender fluid / gender queer, whatever you want to call it. Basically what that means is, so pansexual, so that means that when I am attracted to people, I am attracted to their personality first and foremost. I don't, oh, they're a guy, I like them, or they're a girl, I don't like them, just because they're a particular gender. So I go for personality, like whatever the other person identify as, fine. I don't care. It's just their personality. And non-binary / gender fluid, it's kind of the same concept, but for myself. So I view myself as just a person. And most of the time I feel feminine. I don't necessarily feel like I'm a female. Like I should do these things because I'm a female. I should wear these clothes because I'm a female. I just feel like I am a person, and okay, if I feel masculine some days, fine, cool. If I don't, if I feel feminine, then fine, cool.
Yeah. When did you first discover your identity in the LGBTQ plus community?
So I kind of was a little late compared to a lot of people. Well, I guess I will say kind of average to late-ish, but I kind of started realizing it in 7th, 8th grade-ish. Some people, I find it really awesome and hilarious at the same time because it's just great. But some people know when they're like 5 years old, and it's like the greatest thing ever. But at first I thought I was bisexual because I haven't heard of pansexual before. And actually, a lot of people, some people have not heard of pansexual before, but I thought I was bisexual. And then about 9th or 10th grade, probably 10th grade, that's when I kind of started, you do your research, you watch videos, all that sort of thing. And so that's when I discovered, more labels, more names, more kind of identifications, and that, I was like, oh, I lean more to, I'm attracted to you as a person, whoever you are. So, I was like, okay, I'm pan,
And I wouldn't blame you for not figuring it out when you were 5, because it seemed like you were going through a lot of other things at that time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the gender thing, I don't think I started feeling that until like beginning of high school, mid high school, mostly. Because I mean, that's when like a lot of that stuff hits. In school, you start like, oh, you have especially high school, it's very groupy, it's very like, oh, the girls are doing this week and the guys are doing this week, and oh, we're going shopping, we're doing all of this, all these very stereotypical grouped things. And that's when I was like, man, I don't really identify as being completely female. I don't feel like that's right. It just didn't feel right. So that's when, and I have several friends that I've known for years that are also part of the LGBTQ plus community. So, we kind of talked about it, that sort of thing. So
are there any kind of misconceptions or assumptions that some people have about the LGBTQ plus community that you would like to address or clear up?
I guess broadly, one of the biggest things is that we are still people. It's just kind of like our identity, and that's it. That's just it. So you could have like 10 people in the room that all identify as the same thing. But some people do not realize that means there's 10 different versions. So everybody could identify as the same thing, but it means something slightly different to everybody. So, and this honestly confuses like even the people who like know, so that are so educated on all the different terminology and stuff on the LGBTQ plus community. Sometimes it even confuses them because you have all these different spectrums. And I mean, it's just unbelievable how many terms and labels there are like today. I know a pretty good bit. I don't know everything. I identify, like I said, I identify as non-binary / gender fluid. That could mean something completely different, but some similar-ish to somebody else. So that's kind of a concept that people do not realize sometimes. And
Mhm.
it's a huge thing to know because, it can bring up really, really bad assumptions sometimes.
Right. So you would say that there are some baseline definitions for some things, but what that can mean to a particular person can just vary like drastically.
Right.
And would it be right to say that, I mean, it's so so different between each person because each individual is defining and discovering their own self and their own identity.
Exactly.
So the labels that they have are the ones that they give themselves and how they are, expressing and living out, their own identity.
Right.
And so I feel like instead of trying to like bash the idea that, oh, you don't even know what this word means, we should go in with a lot more like grace and compassion and be like, this is who you are. Can you explain it to me? I want to be respectful instead of just, I don't understand it. I don't like it, which is just what I get from what I hear and what I get from like so many people toward the attitude toward the LGBT community. And it's very disheartening.
It is. And one of the most frustrating things is when you have somebody, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm pansexual. And then the person goes, no, you're not.
Oh
You're
gosh,
like,
that must be.
excuse me? Because it's like they know somebody else that's pansexual. Maybe they kind of are a little different. It's like, okay, but I am. That's how I identify. And then there's like a whole discussion about it sometimes, and that's interesting. I think one of the biggest things to start off with, let's say someone looks visually like they're LGBTQ plus, because some like are very loud and proud about it, which is cool. And sometimes they just, again, so many assumptions. One of the greatest things to hear and one of the best things to do is what are your pronouns? When somebody asks me that, it's like one of the greatest feelings to have, because 99% of the time you have to initiate it. These are my pronouns, call me this. Again, it can be completely different. So non-binary, I feel like a lot of people say, okay, automatically their pronouns are they, them. That's not the case all the time. Me, I'm cool with she, her, they, them. Like, that's fine. Honestly, I don't really care. But some people are very, very, very sensitive about that. Like, do not call me this. Like that hurts. It brings up memories. It can do so many different things. And so just being aware of that, asking that question, and then being open to this person, these people can say that they're the exact same words. But I mean, again, they're different people, so it means different things.
Right. It's almost like people are complicated and life is full of nuance and, complexity.
Exactly.
But there's so many people in the world who just want it to be like black and white, this and that. And it just, there's no room for error, for wiggle room. And it's not that black and white mentality is not a good way to look at the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely not.
Where have you been able to be the most open about your, your identity, and where have you found the most supports in being in the LGBTQ plus community?
So far it's been here. When I've moved to Austin, I moved to Austin back in December. So I'm still fairly new here, but being here has let me be my full self completely, because I am not in a place where my personality and how I identify is kind of like repressed a little bit. So being here and being with somebody who accepts me completely, finding friends that accept me completely, I can do that now. It's fine. It's safe. I can be who I want to be. I can go shop for any clothes I want to. I can wear clothes that I feel are good for me. Maybe, if I was where I was, where I was growing up and I wore something particular, okay, that's wrong. But here being in Austin, I can do whatever I want that feels good to me, feels good to my personality. As for support, there are many groups. I have a ton of friends who are somewhere on the spectrum, one way or another. So I can actually, talk to them in full about it now. I can just in all areas just kind of express myself, and I'm still trying to get there, because I had to not be myself for so many years that it's just kind of hard sometimes to find out, oh, I like doing this and it's okay. So I'm still trying to kind of get there, and it's kind of slow at times, but it's good. It's really good. It's healthy. So it's a great experience.
So here in Austin's where you found the most support, where have you received the most pushback?
So that would be where I grew up, my household. My family is, they're very traditional. They're religious. They're conservative. They're the black and white type. It's either this or it's not. And so everything about living with my family was so many things. My sexuality, my gender identity, my opinions for some things. I just had to, okay, go in the corner and stay in there until we can, move somewhere else. Kind of that side of me. My dad would watch a lot of news that was very biased.
Was it Fox News?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's what I grew up with. And to this day, I cannot watch the news. Like, because I've been so traumatized by watching the news, and I've heard so many things come out of his mouth and people on the TV that I'm like, you can't watch the news. It's bad. Everything that they say on the news is bad, and there's channels that you can watch and it like covers everything and it's fine. And it's just kind of like what's happening in the world. But I'm just so used to the news being horrible, especially for like my opinions, that I just don't want to go near it.
Yeah.
So that was that, and they were very, very, very homophobic. So I couldn't express that. I couldn't, let's say at some point, let's say if I happen to like really be attracted to, another female or something, I just couldn't, never mind. It just couldn't happen. So that was hard. It was kind of like I was having to repress a huge part of who I am. Honestly, my entire personality. Just kind of had to almost pretend to be somebody else for years, I didn't want to have like a whole conflict constantly, all these really awkward conversations. I just didn't want all that.
Right.
So I just said, that caused a lot of things, within
Friction.
myself. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, honestly, I do not have a great relationship with my family. My brother is fine. We're not as close as I would like to be with him, but he's open, he's cool. But I do not have a great relationship, almost not a relationship at all with my parents at the moment. Especially since I moved to Austin. So that was really hard for me, and it still is a little bit, but I finally started accepting the fact that like this is my life and I need to do stuff that I actually enjoy doing, and it's okay to do those things. It's okay to have your own opinions. It's okay to be yourself. And sometimes it's really hard for me to still notice that, because there's, even there's just like random things that come up where I'm like, that's okay to do. Like I just feel kind of weird. But it's fine. And my partner says like, yeah, just like just be whoever you want to be. So that's pretty cool. So
yeah, growing up in a similar like evangelical environment, and then finally when I moved out of my place, there was a lot of things that I realized, oh, these things are actually not like super bad. And the first thing that came to mind was cussing. That's just the first thing that came to mind, because like cussing, like super taboo. Don't do it. It doesn't matter how angry you get. You say off fiddlesticks. Yep. And it's like, and then you start things like, okay, so why are cuss words bad? It's a cultural thing.
It is.
There's also like leeway things in cultural things, because something that the culture does not like doesn't necessarily make it inherently bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you could apply that to so much more than just cussing.
Oh yeah, my parents were they were so interesting. My parents, of course, would cuss a lot. It's like if I'll never forget when my brother said the word crap the first time. My parents were like, "Oh my God,
we failed."
Yeah. But it's so funny because, okay, so for instance, my mom's side of the family is Cajun. They are very South Louisiana. When my mom gets around those people, her filter is gone. And it's the craziest experience because she's just not that way. And I think it's because my dad's side of the family is very religious, like my grandparents. So that's the way he grew up. And my mom grew up with crazy Cajuns. So now that they've been living together and they're married, she's just kind of adapted that way. But when I hear her, it's a switch. It comes back on. When she is around her family, you know, my uncle, her cousins, all that, it just turns right back around. And it is so funny. And it's like her personality comes out, and it's almost like, you know, is this your real personality? So that's an interesting thing too. So that's that. So I've always felt like so weird, and I still have like never cussed around my parents because it's like,
I don't cuss from my parents either, because there's already some friction starting, and I don't need to add that onto the top.
Right.
Because
Right,
me and my dad, we used to have a pretty good relationship, and our opinions were almost always pretty much in sync. But then the day where I dropped the bombshell of, hey, I don't think that being, you know, LGBTQ is a sin. I don't think being gay is a sin. And I thought that I would be able to be open and to talk to him about that. But as soon as I even mentioned that, it's just the ball is dropped. What? No. As soon as we had like differing opinions, that openness and like comfortability that I thought I had with my dad and confiding things in him just completely went away. Weird question. I wasn't exactly sure how to phrase it, so I guess I'll just go with this. Is there any connection between your identity in the LGBTQ community and your blindness?
So in the broad spectrum of things, there's not. It's kind of hard to say because they are, you know, they're both my identity, but one is physical and one is not. I will say, I think the only thing that I've actually thought about a lot, and I've kind of wondered, and I've kind of wanted to ask other people too, is the only thing is because of the fact that I cannot see physical appearance and I cannot see you. Okay, did that affect why I am pansexual? You know, so I've thought about that a lot. You know, because I cannot see you, because I cannot make assumptions about you, because I can't walk up to you and say, oh, that you know, that's a guy right there, you know, that's a girl, you know, is that a really big reason why I do identify as pansexual? And I feel like that could be a reason, you know, it definitely could be. But at the same time, I would like to think even if I was sighted, then I would still be a pretty decent person.
Yeah.
And not make those assumptions. And I really think, you know, if I was sighted, I'd probably still identify as the same thing, because I mean, that's just who I am. But I think about those things a lot. Like if I could see, you know, kind of what things would be different. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think they're like super connected.
Yeah.
But
what is an unmet need in the LGBTQ plus community that you would like to see met, like not only in individuals, but like as a whole systemically?
One part of the LGBTQ plus community that I've found kind of people are more either awkward about or more critical about or more just they kind of just don't want to mess with it is people who are on the A spectrum. So like asexual people, demisexual, gray sexual, all of that. And for a lot of people, it's just kind of like weird, like, okay, you know, like how do you like people? Like how do you marry people? Do you like date people? And it's just people are just like very weird about it. And I am not saying that I'm not, because I have a friend who is asexual slash demisexual. I don't know, it changes sometimes. But and me personally, I'm just the exact opposite. So I was like very confused when she told me. I'm like, that just, I'm confused, it just doesn't make any sense. But then it's just another thing, they identify as that. So it's fine. It's how they identify. It's not you. So it's not like you're supposed to understand it 100%.
Right.
Because it's not you. I just think that there should be more awareness of that, because a lot of asexual people, kind of feel that pushback, I just don't, it's kind of almost like they're isolated within the LGBTQ plus community, which is wrong. It's not good.
Can you define, can you say what is a ace, or you said demisexual? I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, there's a lot. Like even I get kind of confused. So ACE is kind of the short form for asexual. Asexual is like a broad term, and demisexual and gray sexual are kind of like branches. But basically what this means is people who do not like sexual things. So they're usually attracted to people romantically, and they either have no interest, or it takes a lot of emotional connection and very, very deep connection to even reach the possibility of, getting intimate, like sexually. And so that's kind of what that is. It's very interesting. It really is. It's such a, like I said, I do not identify that as that. So it just fascinates me, because I'm just thinking like, part of me just doesn't understand. But like I said, I'm not supposed to understand, because, it's them. And so I feel like, and it's, the sad thing is, a lot of the times asexual people almost have to find other asexual people to date and to be with, because
there's that pressure of
exactly
performing for whoever they're with.
Exactly. And a lot of people just don't understand, like, and I know a lot of asexual people, my friend, like I mentioned, they don't even like talking about anything sexual. It just makes them uncomfortable. They just like want to avoid it at all costs, because that's just not who they are.
Right.
And a lot of people these days, it's just something that comes up very naturally. And it just makes them, it's like instantly like, oh God, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Can you please make other conversations except for that?
Yeah. So is the reason why there's a pushback from the rest of the LGBT community with the ACE community is because the LGBT community is all about your different sexualities, and it seems like asexual sexuality is basically none.
It's like the other. It's like you're heterosexual, you're homosexual, you're bisexual, you're pansexual, you're there's other things, there are so many, but and then you're asexual. Like it's like the other section almost. Like if somebody was going down a list identifying themselves, like let's say you're like clicking buttons, like this is who I am, it's like you go into a different like dimension. it's like a whole nother branch, and it's like a lot of the times it's not on the list, and you have to say other. Because it's just that a lot of people just don't understand it. They don't know it exists, or they just really just don't want to think about it for some reason. So it's just not mentioned a lot of times, and now they feel isolated, and it's kind of like, I'm part of this community who's supposed to be very, very accepting, and there's so many diverse people that it feels like you should be accepted, but all of a sudden you're kind of not sometimes.
I think that's very odd, because I can understand how there can be like an understanding disconnect, like how can you not be attracted to like anybody like at all. I can understand how there can be a disconnect there, but there's also so many different varieties and such large a spectrum of gender identities and sexualities amongst everything else that what I don't understand is how that is the straw that confuses the camel's back, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And I was actually going to mention that too. One of the things that really, really frustrates me is talking about gender identity, transgender people. Oh my God, it's just, okay, it's getting better. And I will point this out, so I'm not like, whatever, like people are coming after me about it. But like I said, I did not interact with the LGBTQ community for a while. I'm just now doing it, so I don't know everything, of course. But transgender is almost like, it's like a whole nother section. Yeah. And one thing that really, really bothers me, and bothers a lot of people, and it's kind of like a huge controversy thing, is like transgender people while they're in school. So like younger kids. And there's so many things when you're younger are very much gender based. Oh, I'm going to split you into two groups, boys and girls, and you're going to have a competition, There's so much of that. And a lot of people don't realize that even somebody like can be so young, it's like 5 or 6 years old. Little kids can be so smart, and they just like, they still have, their personality is still there. It's already there. They're already feeling things. And a lot of parents, adults just do not realize that. And it's kind of like going through a phase. It's always you're going through a phase.
That can be so insulting. I mean, even as like a kid, going back to trans, you said that things are getting better. You also said that you have not been watching the news. So have you been aware of the anti-trans bill, trans affirming bill here in Texas?
No.
Which basically is saying that any parent who gives affirming treatment to their child can be seen as child abuse and can be fined.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
it's very ridiculous, but I'm not surprised. I guess I should go back and say that trans is getting better within the community.
Yeah, within the community, but on the greater spectrum.
In the greater spectrum, it's not. But like I said before, I do not know very much as far as like news and bills and all that stuff. I need to catch up, because it would be great to know, and I probably should before I say something stupid. And I
no, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, stuff like that it's so bad. It's not good.
You did, you might have already touched on this with a lot of your answers, but you recently moved out of your parents' place to become more independent. What motivated you to venture out onto your own?
So eventually got to a point about a year ago that after I had been living at the training center by myself, we were living in apartments. I did have a roommate, but you're not with your parents. I started realizing more and more how much negativity was in my household. And so I told myself, if you really want to be happy, if you want to have a future that you enjoy and not something you're doing because you want to do it for your parents, I need to start new. I need to, part of me was like, maybe I can just move out somewhere. I'll be going to college anyway, and I'll be in a dorm, so it'll be fine. But I started realizing that it was so bad. I was like, I just need to go. I need to leave. I need to get out. I needed to make that. I needed to get room, like a lot of room. Obviously, it's like a whole couple states of room between me and my parents. And honestly, it was severe anxiety. It was very, very, very severe depression, and all of that. It was just getting so bad that I was like, this like kind of sucks. Like, you're going downhill very fast, and you're not going to stop if you keep living at your parents' house, So I moved, I packed up, I flew to Austin by myself. First time I've ever been in an airport by myself. First time I've ever been to the Dallas airport at all. So I did that all by myself, and then I started living with my partner, and that was it. It was like the most dramatic thing I've ever done in my life. But I will probably ever say this the whole rest of my life. That was probably like the best decision that I've ever made, and could be the best decision that I will have ever made. But because it just, to be blunt, like it saved, my life. It brought me more hope It brought me like more motivation to do stuff that I wanted to do. And it kind of like I finally found myself again because I was like going places, I was in my mind, I was like reaching other dimensions, I was like losing myself. I was floating away, honestly. And very bad places. So coming here was a very healthy choice.
So did your partner already live in Texas, or did he move here with you?
So he had been in Texas for 3 months because we met at the training center. And so he also did not graduate because he had skills before. So he left. And so he moved to Austin. He was rooming with somebody for a little while. And then I was like, I do not want to go home. I don't know what to do. He was like, okay, come up here. I said, you know what? That's what I want to do. So we roomed with a couple for a couple months. That was horrible, as like some roommates go. But then we finally got our apartment in February.
So now that you are in Austin and you have, your freedom and your ability to kind of like choose your own path where you want to go, what do you hope to create for yourself for your future?
So what I'm planning to do before I made this dramatic change, what I was going to do, I was going to go to school for speech therapy, actually. And I still have interest in it, of course, but I do not want to go to college immediately because what I've noticed is, so what happened was I pushed myself very, very hard in high school. Like all that I did was academics. And I think I did so much that I got sick of it. So I just do not want to go to like major school right now. I just need a break. And I think it's also very good for me not to go to college right now because I am still trying to get myself in a very, very healthy position. And so what I'm planning to do is next fall, go to massage therapy school, which will not be as long. So I'm going to get my license there, which will get me a pretty good job somewhere. I could even start a business, which will be great. And so I want to do that. I may eventually go to college, for either speech therapy or something else. But I'm the type of person that is interested in multiple things constantly. My interests just move all the time. So I feel like for me, college may not even be a very good option because that is like 6 to 8 years of my life. And I can just see myself being like in the middle of college, like,
I don't want to do this anymore. I went to college just for a little bit, and I was all like, I want to go. It's like I want to do something that seems interesting that I can also get a good job in. And so I was going to go into computer graphics and design, and halfway, not even halfway through it, I realized, do I even really want to do this? And I also could not pass any of my math classes, so that was also very discouraging. And so I was all like, what do I actually want to do? I want to work with children. I could just go work at a daycare.
There you go. That works. And I grew up, my school was very competitive. So I grew up like you have to do good. You take all these advanced classes, you're academic, all this stuff. So that's who I was for like 8 years, 7, 8 years. Major hardcore academics. And actually a good thing that happened to me was when I did go to training, I met all these different people. I met my partner. My partner does not like academics. And he's also a very, very logical person. He was like, man, why would you go to college if you don't want to? It's very expensive and it's dumb and it takes years of your life.
It's dumb. That's the best reason.
Yeah. It was like, and for me, I just absolutely hate the idea of having one career my entire life. Like that just seems sad. Like there's so many other things to do and other places to go. Like why just limit yourself to just one thing? That's just me. Some people will do the same thing for like 60 years. But that's me. So like I said, I want to go to massage therapy school. Me and my partner absolutely love cooking. So we want to start a food/restaurant something or other business at some point.
I
I'm not
saw
sure.
the food you posted on Facebook and it looked delicious.
It was so good. Yeah, I don't know what that will look like, but we want to do something like that at some point.
So you talked about giving up going to a school that you had a scholarship for. What was there any other sacrifices you had to make, making your first steps towards, what you hope for your future?
Yeah, so yeah, that scholarship was probably the biggest thing. I think that's one of the biggest things my parents still were like, you are insane, like you've lost your mind, because that scholarship I had a full ride to a 4-year college and that was it. It paid for everything. So I gave that up. And actually what convinced me that I was doing the right thing by moving to Austin, what really sealed that was the fact that I did not feel hardly any guilt about giving up that scholarship. And it took me years to build up the enough writing skills and scores and stuff to get that scholarship. But moving to Austin, I just don't care. And that tells me that, moving here was the best decision. But
I was gonna say that the scholarship was maybe something that your parents wanted, but it wasn't anything that was really your desire to gain.
Right. And I think the biggest thing was, okay, so the school that I was going to go to was literally 10 minutes away from my house. Yeah. So I wanted to go to other colleges. I was looking at all these colleges. I was researching all these really good colleges because I've always loved traveling. I loved going places and I did not want to stay, I was born in that same town. I did not want to stay there for the next 8-10 years. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go to other colleges, and my parents were like, we are not paying for your applications to go to other colleges. It's like, okay. And that was my only form of finance, so they wouldn't pay for it, so I wasn't going. So I applied to this college. I got all the scholarships. I got accepted to the honors society. I mean, all the fancy stuff. But then I just was not feeling that, so I moved to Austin. But the other thing I left some people behind, my brother. I still feel, kind of bad about that. I could not tell him that I was leaving at the time because I couldn't tell my parents because they would have drove up to Louisiana and tried to convince me / drag me home. And so there was a possibility, and I know I can trust my brother, but I cannot trust my parents to get stuff out of him. So, that was I just could not tell him at the time. And there was many, 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 people from school, my teachers. I had very good relationships with my teachers. I had, friendships with a lot of them actually. So I just me just suddenly picking up and going to Austin put so much, it just put so many weird feelings and barriers and stuff between so many people. And I miss a lot of people, and at this second, I don't feel like it's the best choice to contact some of them at this time. But I want to at some point, because those people are fantastic. And some of them I've known for a long time. So that just kind of gets to me sometimes, that there were a whole town full of people who knew me and who supported me, and I just kind of left them. But that it's fine. Things will work out. The things that need to work out will work out. So other than that, that's about it.
In your whole journey, what would you say is being or has been, let's say, redeemed or restored?
I think myself, holistically. So my desire to do stuff, my desire to, because before I was like, oh, I don't want to do anything. Because, I was so anxious. I was so depressed. So I was just like, oh my God, everything sucks. So me actually just wanting to get out and do stuff, me pursuing a job, me pursuing school next year, me Oh my God, I absolutely love cooking, and the fact that I have my own kitchen is like the best thing ever. So me exploring that side of myself. And so I think just me like repairing just kind of the super deep, scars, like emotional scars. And it's still, some of those things are going to take years. And, I may, even go to therapy at some point, because I mean, I feel like therapy is kind of good for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do that. But yeah, in general, just me being like living my life fully, just me being that type of person and doing that has, probably been the greatest thing that has happened, and is happening still.
And then I have a few more questions, but they're just kind of like basic, like curiosity questions about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so first one is like, what are your favorite hobbies? I know you mentioned cooking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so also love baking. I love reading. Reading has always been one of my biggest hobbies, passions. I love exploring, so I love like like going to different places. I love I haven't traveled very much, but I want to. I love traveling so much. I love like meeting other people and learning of like different cultures, diverse people. I love helping people. I love like teaching. I love volunteering. I love animals are like the greatest thing ever.
Do you have any pets?
I currently I do not, but back at home we have 2 cats. Over the years we've had a dog, several cats. My brother has had fish, but I absolutely love animals. So the only animals that I am not a fan of are the little tiny creepy crawlies, and that's about it.
So what kind of things do you like just do for fun?
I love thrill seeking. I absolutely love roller coasters. I love zip lining. I love swimming. I love like getting I love like doing like crazy stuff, like getting into trouble or like other places, like just random places. Sometimes I love like kind of crafting things. I don't do it very often, but when I do it, it's very like relaxing and fun for me.
You mentioned one of your hobbies is reading. Like what are your favorite things to read?
I usually go towards sci-fi and fantasy. Those are usually my go-tos, my biggest ones. But I love action, I love suspense, I love horror, crime, mystery. Honestly, about the only thing that I really do not like is like extremely historical slash nonfiction books. I love watching documentaries. I absolutely love them, but I cannot read it. It puts me to sleep.
All right, and then the last question that I have here is that I'm curious about, and I'm sure other people who would listen to this might be curious as well.
Mhm.
You lost your sight at 5. Is there anything pre you losing your sight that you can remember visually?
As I get older, it just things like it's less, but I mean, there's a few movies that like if I watch them for any particular reason, if I watch them before I lost my vision, then I sometimes have little like recalls of like what a scene may have looked like or certain colors. So for instance, like when I was younger, one of my most favorite movies was watching the Curious George movie. And so when Curious George was like painting the walls with like all the red paint and stuff. I'll never forget, like a few years ago, I found it on Netflix. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna watch it. So I was watching it, and it was the most greatest feeling when he was like spreading paint all over the walls and being a disaster and doing all this stuff. It just came back to me. I was like, oh my God, that paint is red. And I asked my mom, I was like, is that red? And she was like so confused, like how did you know that? And it was I just have little like flashbacks almost. It's not even me remembering. It's almost like I see it, in that split second. And it literally lasts like a split second and then it's gone. So I have like it's nothing that I can like make happen. It just kind of happens like suddenly. It hasn't happened very often. It probably has only happened maybe 3 or 4 times so far. My entire life, since I've lost my vision. But things like that. So that's pretty fun when it does happen.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with me and answering all my questions. Is there anything additional you want to add or anything you want to say at the end here?
I guess I could just say like I really appreciate, this opportunity, and it's really good to kind of talk about, blindness in general and talking about LGBTQ community, because there is like a ton of stereotypes. There are a lot of barriers, and a lot of people do not want to talk about it. They don't want to get into all of it, but it's necessary. It's necessary for things to move, for things to change, for people to accept each other. And so, I think it's really great that, you're doing this, you kind of went in this direction to talk about these things, and, for me to kind of discuss them too. So it's been really great, and I appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here with me. And I'm really bad at ending things, so I guess I'll just say thank you. And I hope we get to talk more again in the future, that our friendship doesn't just end right here, but we'll be able to possibly hang out more in the future.